Yo, Zay here. Before I start, my voice is kind of going out from a lot of yelling yesterday and talking way too much since then. So I will say that I really was in the mood to try to record this. So and part of that is I got this little cup of water beside me that I'm gonna. You might hear me sip a few times while I'm doing this recording. So just letting you know, and hopefully I can make it through and say what I want to say. Let me take a sip real quick then. But yeah, so today I want to talk about I believe it's like 6 minute long, essentially preview that Konami made for their animation studio back in 2024, which was also essentially Yu-Gi-Oh has always been a thing that is known for its anime since the original, actually going back into the 90s when they first tried to adapt the manga even. But with that, it's always been its kind of this kind of disconnected thing to where in the universe the cards themselves are also just kind of a mishmash of ideas that was originally just inspired by Magic the Gathering and was essentially just a parody, even originally. But now we're almost 30 years later, and essentially so much creativity has been put into the various 10,000 plus Yu-Gi-Oh cards that have come into the game since it was originally released, that they were able to start putting in their own stories onto it's basically portraying their own stories on the card art that you can piece together by kind of you can piece together some bits and pieces, not like a complete A to B story, but you can in general get the vibe through all the characters that are depicted, through events that are depicted, through the names, through the text that they put on what are referred to as vanilla cards, the yellow cards that don't have any ability to them. They just have the basic things for a monster. All that. So, what has essentially been the thing for a long time is people have wanted for those stories to be depicted in a more concrete way. Now, this came out back in 2024, and I'm recording this in late 2025. As of this recording, there have been, I believe, 6 or 7 episodes of this series. What I'm talking about today was originally a preview, but they did they did a few Sky Striker ones, and then they did Fallen of they're currently Fallen of Albaz. I think believe the next one's the last one for that, and then they'll be going into a new storyline. If I'm saying terms that you might not be familiar with. If you are familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, I'll get there. But yeah, this short is interesting for a variety of reasons. Not just as essentially an advertisement for Konami's animation studio, but also because it again presents the idea of they decided to start proper adapting the different ideas that were originally put into cars as stories into actual proper anime. Now, I would love if they actually were proper anime. As it exists, they're essentially shorts, and they only air one of these shorts monthly, and they average around 5 minutes. These are not full length episodes, unfortunately. But we'll see. We'll see what it gets to. We'll see what it gets to. So to actually talk about the short itself, there's quite a lot of things I really like about this short. The first thing that I kind of want to mention, obviously, it starts with what would be the most recognizable thing for people, which is anime, which is referencing Dark Magician Girl and Blue Eyes White Dragon, And they even like continue on that path a little bit by having the first like proper scene after they go through after said characters go through a portal that is like depicted in the same way as the back of a Yu-Gi-Oh card as we understand it. And if that's always been the intention, that's really interesting in and of itself. As if it's always intended to be like a portal. But the first one we get, I'm not gonna go through each individual one. In fact, I'll be honest, I can't even remember the exact order of what all is depicted. But they start with Maiden of Eyes of Blue, which, if you are familiar with the old anime, I have not read the full manga, so I don't know if it's depicted exactly the same. But the Maiden of Eyes of Blue is basically the original, like, kind of soul of Blue Eyes White Dragon. And there's a whole idea there, of how the Blue Eyes White Dragon itself has a very interesting lore if you go back and check out that original Yu-Gi-Oh story. Again, I'm not going to talk about all that today. I will absolutely talk about that in the future when I actually properly talk about those things. When I talk about the original anime or talk about the original manga. Or even just the characters themselves of like Kaiba and all that. Anyways. So what this short does, there's a couple things that this short does. One thing is that the main thing that they do take from that original iconic anime series is the most iconic soundtrack from that series, which is called Passionate Duelist. Now, the funny thing too is most of you, like just like me, would not have actually heard this as a kid because it wasn't in the English version. It was in the Japanese version. But as you get into YouTube and stuff, and as you start getting into the like later 2000s and people start watching the original Japanese version, I only ended up watching it like when I was already in college in like 2017. So that's way, way, way later. But what you get is you essentially get throughout this, along with each short that is each essentially short section that is depicted, you get a different version, like essentially remix of Passionate Duelist that is done in the style of whatever genre of story they are currently focusing on. And like with that, there's like the music combined with all the variety of genres that they like excellently depict in this short. You really get this cool like thing of we in the past have focused on Yu-Gi-Oh as a game within a story. Now we are taking these characters that are directly from the game itself that people still play to this day, and we are taking those characters, making new stories with them, and we have demonstrated that we have had ideas for all kinds of genres that we put into the cards. Now we can put those ideas into animation. And that all together in this like 6-7 minute thing is so satisfying. It was like I did watch this when it came out, and like when I first watched it back in 2024, it was so satisfying that like this is the direction they're deciding to go, instead of essentially just having the cards be mascots or with like some like it's not nothing. It's not that the monsters are nothing and that they're just completely made up. They are like spirits in the original context of the Yu-Gi-Oh thing, but they aren't all the lore like implications are a kind of made. It's hard to describe. It's so hard for me to not end up just reviewing the weirdness of the like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters and GX and all that. But again, all that's a conversation for another day. To stay focused on this, so like as you go through these different things, like as far as like the ones that really stand out to me, obviously, again, like I said, Maiden of Eyes of Blue at the start, especially knowing like what that was originally inspired by back in Duel Monsters. Uh, a little bit later, uh, I like, and like they are like also like very much showcasing like animation things. Like when you get to the one that's I forget, I believe it's pronounced the Ice Dragon, the Ice Dragon. I think it's like Trishula, and then you have this like basically these people like these like warriors like in these really interesting looking designs, and they're all like surrounding this huge pillar that has the ice dragon inside it, like, and it's just this like super cinematic shot. A little bit later, like in the middle, which is probably my favorite part of the whole thing, when they introduce freaking Divine Arsenal Zeus, man. Divine Arsenal Zeus, and then I forget its name, but then it's the monster that was made to essentially be the rival for Zeus, where it's like, hey, you want a Yu-Gi-Oh mecha story that's like expertly animated. That's like imagine when we get to that. Like imagine when we get to that. Like yeah, so far to kind of like say where we're at. The only two stories so far that have been adapted are like at Sky Striker and Fallen of Albaz, which are the last two in this short. I'll get to talking about them in a little bit, but whenever they eventually get around to doing something, whatever it is supposed to going on for Zeus, I cannot wait. It's so cool. It's so it's so unbelievably cool that I can't even like wrap my head around. If there's more depth to that than just cool robot, like, oh man. I'm kind of getting see shit, but like, yeah, no, there's fun stuff to there's fun stuff to this. Like a little bit after that, they get into like Six Samurai, to where you have like Six Samurai has been around for a long time, but that's also been like a like one of the more iconic archetypes that exists within the card game, because it's like it's samurai, but there's also like some like I don't want to say cyberpunk, but like futuristic. Was it steampunk? I guess. Well, I don't know exactly what term you would use uh for them, but like there's some like tech elements to their designs and the way they're moving and all that. So like that's also obviously one that was made to like catch attention. And obviously again, we're talking about samurai, so sword fighting. They did get to do fancy sword fighting animation, all that. Great, fantastic. Um, yeah, I'm not talking about every single one. The other one I do really want to mention is that like when you get to you get a lot of examples in this of also if you are someone who is not okay, if you're listening to me talk about this and you are not into Yu-Gi-Oh at all, you do not play, or maybe you did or maybe you're one of the many people who was originally interested when you were a kid and you watched the show, but now you look at how things are in the modern day and for whatever reason you just don't get it. Okay, in general, the thing to understand with Yu-Gi-Oh is that the game is very much organizes its creatures into what are referred to as archetypes. Essentially, with those archetypes having a name like associated with them that is printed on the cards, and then those archetypes with it like essentially have a theme to them. Again, with the different monsters that are depicted, with the different like people and creatures that are depicted on the cards, or like the different events that are depicted on the non-monster type cards. You this is essentially what you pick a theme. Basically, there's the different kinds of themes. There's all sorts of different genres of fantasy. There's all sorts of different fantasies of sci-fi. There's different like ideas that like directly are essentially elaborate references to other kinds of to existing stories. You basically, yeah, it's you like you could watch this short and just pick what looks cool and look up the cards related to the name that you see on screen. Just look up the name you see on screen, start looking at the cards, and see if you can understand what the like at all what the cards are doing, and maybe start even like playing with them, especially if they're cheap enough. Yu-Gi-Oh cards, if they're one advantage that you absolutely do get over Magic is that unless it's like new, most Yu-Gi-Oh cards are cheap. Like are do not cost that much. They like Yu-Gi-Oh is way better about reprinting their cards and making them accessible compared as someone who originally started with Magic the Gathering. And part of that is the idea of archetypes being like if people have a certain archetype that is their favorite, they'll like want to keep releasing cards so that those people will still want to be like play through the game, and you can kind of treat it in the same way that us over in the FGC kind of treat it, where you can just keep going. You can just keep going with your favorite character essentially, or you can have like a few favorite characters for that game, and you can just focus primarily on those characters as your overall play experience. Of course, you can experiment, especially if you can afford to get different archetypes, to buy multiple different archetypes and like or like build up a collection. Of course, you can experiment, uh, but this is a game where there's merit in essentially picking a favorite or a couple of favorites and then like really sticking it out as much as you can and seeing if you can make it like work for you. It's a competitive game, so like you basically want to play with the cards you like. And in the terms of cards, that works in different ways. You might, unfortunately, there is the possibility, and this is also a possibility again in arcade fighters, where you might like the aesthetic of something. You might look at Six Samurai, for example, and you might be like, that is the coolest thing ever. I want to play Six Samurai. Then you buy the cards. But then when you start playing with it, you basically like look at the strategies itself that are used in order to be able to keep up competitively. You get your staple cards that like are the best like generic cards to support the strategy, and then you play for some time and it just might not click for you. Unfortunately, that just is a thing that can happen. So like if you watch this, if you are someone who does not own a single Yu-Gi-Oh card, you can watch this short, or like since it's a spoiler series, you might have already done so. But even if you didn't and you just clicked on it for whatever reason, I'm gonna put it in the description because it's on YouTube. Let me take a sip. You can essentially watch this short. You can just pick one of the names, go buy those cards for like if they're cheap enough, like that you're willing to like experiment with it, and then like you can make the call yourself of like, do you can you jive with both the theme that got you in and the gameplay that is on offer from playing that archetype or those archetypes that you were interested in. It might work, it might not. If you can then afford to basically buy into another archetype, maybe your first pick didn't work out, but maybe your second one will. Again, due to the nature of card games, unfortunately, again, basically you're subscribing to the inherent idea of like buying more cards over time. That's a whole other conversation in and of itself. Like God, if you play video games and you don't like DLC, then Lord, like if you are not already familiar with card games, there's a whole other conversation to have there. I'm saying this might be a thing to get you to get you going, to give you some ideas of where to start playing the game. And yeah, you can give it a go. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Even if you don't like actually playing the game, maybe you still think like conceptually it's cool, and or like maybe you don't like playing the game competitively, but like you can, again, you can buy into Yu-Gi-Oh with not that much money. Like in a lot of ways, there's a lot of like really cheap decks, especially if you can buy one of the more recent structure decks. As I'm saying this, if you watch the, if you really like Fallen of Albaz, they're literally releasing a like I believe they're releasing a structure deck to coincide with the shorts coming out, for example. Um, yeah, no, this short like serves a lot of good purposes for essentially like combining all this short does a good job of combining like so many of the different things people love about Yu-Gi-Oh, especially modern day Yu-Gi-Oh. I am someone who is very much like Yu-Gi-Oh as a game has problems. It absolutely has problems. But I am someone who is very much like again as an arcade game enjoyer. I like hard games. I like complex games. I do like games which can like if I really want to, I could play this for 10 years. Like that appeals to me. Yeah. Yeah. If nothing else, like I said, like if you're someone who hasn't tried Yu-Gi-Oh, like again, and this is short inspired anything, and you go ahead and try it. Just go ahead and try it in some kind of way. Like Master Duel exists. There's plenty of video games. There's online simulators you can ask. You could just look into the community real quick, maybe watch some YouTube videos and see what online simulators exist that you could just like kind of check the game out. It's very complicated, but with things like this, like the designers of trading card games know what they're doing, and they will make certain archetypes that are like very easy to understand for a new player. So that's another thing to consider with the concept of archetypes, is that some are more complicated than others, and even very recent ones can be simple enough that if you can understand the basic rules, it's not too much more. It's not too much further. Like this one has like a great example. Uh, Sky Striker, which is the thing, which is the like the two girls fighting with swords at the end, is not a complicated like it's really not that complicated to understand how to play Sky Striker. Like even if you like I watched one tutorial video, and there's like and they basically like were like, this is the combo you do to get the most out of like a Sky Striker turn, and that's it. Now if you want to, there are like other cards that would certainly make things more complicated, and that's the thing too, is there'll be certain cards which are actually like the ones which you really want to play, versus some cards that exist in the archetype that like actually probably are going to make your experience way more complicated for not as much reward. So keep that in mind too. I'm over here talking about the complexity of the damn card game. I was supposed to be talking about the animation. Oh man. But like ultimately that's what they do. Like they even say at the end, like the purpose of this is thank you for playing the card game for 25 years. That's ultimately what they want you to do. Like ultimately the animations are an advertisement for the thing. And even in the case of if you just want to enjoy the animations, like I said, if you like, you might as well you might as well look into the game and check it out and see what it has to offer, because like even regardless of how far this does go along, there are going to be stories that were depicted, like story ideas that were depicted on the cards that are ultimately just going to be excluded and just aren't going to get this, especially at the pace they're doing, where they're doing one short a month and we're only on the second storyline. In this video alone, there's like 15 that essentially that they're presenting the idea of. These are some of the storylines we like are most interested in, maybe even have animated something for a little bit. Let me see. To kind of Oh yeah, and like okay, to go back to actually talking about the animation itself, dude, the bit with Fallen of Abaz, like that is such a I if you can tell, I am someone who loves like anime and manga as a like, I don't want to say as a culture, like not the fan community side of things. I mean as a like style, if that makes more sense. I very much like a lot of the cinematic choices that go into that go into these kinds of things. And when the bit with Fallen of Albaz hits and you hear that version of Passionate Duelist, uh with the like you they even have the black, they even have the like black bars, and the way it comes in, and the way like the girl's face is like she's just like staring intently. The stuff, the big fight that's going on in the sky, like that part is just like, I talked about earlier how much I love this part. That part like damn near brings a tear to my eye. Is with how much that shit hits. That shit's peak. That shit's cinema. I got my hands up like the meme. Oh man. Like I said, I love that. Just to recap the parts I like about this, I like that it starts with Maiden of Ice Blue. I really like the part with Zeus. I really like the part with the part with Live Twin, Evil Twin. That part's kind of fun, although I'm not so much as like, I like that deck, and I like intend to like get around to playing that deck. That's kind of a deck where I'm kind of interested in playing it, but like maybe not so much. But like that's a fun thing, but I feel like they could do more with it. What is it? Yeah, like I talked about Six Samurai. That part's great. Um, one thing that like is not at all depicted in this, and is not named, that I personally am interested in if they ever wanted to do something with, is Labyrinth. That is something that is a deck that is not at all depicted here, but I feel like it would be one where they would that would be one that kind of works, especially if you want to. If we're talking about using cute girls for advertisements, that's what they've done so far. Like, but yeah, and then yeah, I was like I said, the Fallen of Albaz bit, the Sky Striker bit at the end. I like that they didn't have any music for that. They just kind of had it be the freaking Goku and Vegeta, like one person on the ground, what and the other standing on top of the rock, standing on top of the peak, jumps down, they start fighting. They start fighting again. More good sword fighting animation. I like that they had that pretty silent, and finally enough, they don't even like use the name Sky Striker. But again, Sky Striker, like if you're familiar with modern Yu-Gi-Oh at all, is so iconic. Sky Striker raised essentially the face of Yu-Gi-Oh now. Like, but and like I said, the deck is easy enough to get into that it can very much be your first deck playing if you don't like find any of the other themes, and you are someone. I'm talking about myself, basically. I'm talking about myself, basically. When I first started seriously trying to play modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I was playing Sky Striker first. But yeah, I really like how they do that bit. And I've been trying to mention it, but like also the bit where I I cannot get the name in my head. I'm not familiar enough with the cards themselves, but with the lineup of like the girls who are all different colors, and there's like pink clouds and shit, and they're essentially it's the last bit where they perform a remix of Passionate Duelist, and yeah, they do a little performance. I am someone who, in terms of animation, is a sucker for like a in universe musical performance. I love scenes where like in anime where like the characters have a rock band and they're having their performance, whether it goes well or not. And yeah, I have not really watched seen a lot of there aren't too many like notable moments in uh, anime where you have either like a orchestra or a like school band when I say school band I mean like marching band line or anything like that where they have a particularly impactful like performance, but those kinds of things always get to me, and I like that bit too because that is also a kind of story that I am willing to engage with, and the fact that that is one of the things that they chose to depict, I do hope they actually have that as one of the little miniseries they choose to do, especially if there's like no violence. That's one thing that I've been trying to get around, but it's like even in the context of card games, even though the process of playing is inherently about fighting and is inherently about violence, in on the side of things where they choose to depict stories on the cards, I am interested to see what they could do that's just pure like building an interesting world without like violence being involved. Like even if there is violence involved, like having the draw be something else and kind of going against what you would expect. Like the idea of a music focused Yu-Gi-Oh thing as opposed to just a setting in a genre that in some ways is an excuse for cool violence. Like I wonder if they really want to do. I wonder if they really are committed, like to like eventually doing something with that idea, or maybe that was just for like again they're doing the different versions of Passionate Duelist, so it was just thematically have if we have music based cards that works. It might have just been that, and even in that case, that is really cool that they chose to do that. Chose to do it in this way. Like they chose like even just the choices of they chose to have that be the last one in terms of the performances. They kind of like I think even stop before and then they like do the thing where the characters start playing and you're like yeah it's still going. Um, the fact that like they finish up their like quick performance and do a little bow and then you kind of have a curtain close moment and that's when you get the thank you for playing uh bit. Like I'd love so many of the choices on how they chose to. I might be misremembering the exact order of when these things appeared. I've only watched the shorts so many times I don't have it like memorized in my head, but like they they really wanted to like incorporate some cinematic ideas is what I love about is what I love about this whole thing. Like I want more from what we've got than what we've got so far. I honestly hope they do like different mediums. Like I would love an actual proper like show with 22-minute episodes of like eventually or a movie. I think a movie would be more likely if anything. Like they could do if they really just wanted to like do a movie. Or at least or like it could even be short. It could even be like a 20-30 minute like mini movie kind of situation. Instead of just doing these monthly shorts. I kind of do hope they mix it up because honestly, the format that exists so far, the monthly shorts, is like it's cool, but it does give that feeling of like okay, but I would love a full front to back story here, and that's not quite what we've got so far. like I said, yeah, this. I love that this exists. I love that this exists. I love that they decided to change things up in terms of what exactly they're doing with Yu-Gi-Oh as a storytelling device. One last thing, and and like I really want y'all to hold me to this, like be with me on this. If you are unfamiliar, I'm not gonna talk about it too much because it's. But if you're unfamiliar, the original creator of Yu-Gi-Oh, the original author of the manga, Kazuki Takahashi, died back in 2022. R.I.P. Kazuki Takahashi. I really hope that they can keep a good thing going with how they choose to portray the work you created. That's all I have to say about this particular thing. I will do. So how I'm gonna do the actual like series that's going is I'm gonna choose to for like I'm gonna do each storyline. So I'm gonna do an episode of spoilers that's gonna talk about the Sky Striker episodes that they did first, and then sometime after this Fallen of Albaz storyline finishes, then I'll do an episode on that one, and we'll go from there. As for other Yu-Gi-Oh things that I intend to talk about, I am not. Okay, here's what I'll tell you what I'm not gonna do. I am not going to. I have no plans right now to do a spoilers episode for any of the six uh, Yu-Gi-Oh anime that are like the ones people think of first. I'm not going to do a episode dedicated to Dual Monsters or GX or 5Ds, Zexal, Arc V, Brains. I'm same thing with the newer Yu-Gi-Oh anime, which is the one with the kids. Um, what I am gonna do is I am going to talk about the manga. Okay, I intend to fully read through the manga, and I will talk about that. Whether I do the original, whether I do like the stuff that comes after that, like whether I do all of the manga or whether I just do the original remains to be seen, but I will do that. Additionally, I will do an episode on the Dark Side of Dimensions, which is the follow-up movie that came out, I believe, in 2016 to essentially provide closure for the original Duel Monsters anime. I will talk about that. And just to clarify, I'm not choosing not to uh, cover. I'm not choosing not to cover any of those anime because I don't like them. I do. I do like Duel Monsters and GX and 5Ds. I'm starting through Zexal right now. And I do intend to like watch through all of them, but I do not want to do them as spoilers episodes. Mostly because of the length. It's because of the length. Each of these series is like 200, like 150 plus to 200 episodes long, somewhere around there, and that's just too much to do twice. If you're unfamiliar with my way of doing these things, the stuff I color in spoilers is stories that I can go through at least twice. And for me, the ability to do that, even if a manga is long, I can do that. I can go through a manga a second time so much easier than having to follow the pace of a fully animated show. That can get to a point where it's just too much. So that's how I'm gonna decide to do things. Is it'll be much easier for me to talk about manga and right now just the one movie. And I'll find like other opportunities, perhaps not in this series, to talk about like the like for example, if I ever just talk about the characters, or like I do want to play a lot of video games. So like there'll be opportunities to talk about like specifically, uh, talk about like Dual Monsters GX 5Ds, etc., and my thoughts on those things. But as far as the spoiler series goes, I'm gonna focus on what I am willing to manage. All right. So I talked longer. I did not think this would be 40 minutes. Jeez, I did not think it would take me 40 minutes of talking about this. But okay, I hope y'all are enjoying this series so far. Hopefully, I got more for you. And like since I'm talking about Yu-Gi-Oh, if you want to play some Yu-Gi-Oh, if you want to play some Yu-Gi-Oh on any of the ways to play online, you could just ask. You could just ask. I am more than willing to like have that as a part. Have that as an activity for like the community I'm trying to build. So like yeah, let's play some Yu-Gi-Oh. Let's play some Yu-Gi-Oh. If me talking about this got you interested in trying Yu-Gi-Oh, like say so in the comments. Let's get it on. Let's go. All right. This I'm signing off for now. All y'all listening, have a great day.